Up next, here at the catwalk, we have trend agency Promostyl's artistic director and assistant director. Please welcome Sebastien and Malaike to the catwalk.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Okay.
So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are happy to welcome you to this conference proposed by the team of Promostyl. In a couple of words, we are a trend agency based in Paris since the 60s in order to answer to the needs of the baby boomers and the borns of the ready to wear. And now we are studied the need of customers, and we traduce them in terms of garments, volumes, colors, and shapes. So we today are going to talk about the issues and challenges of engaged fashion, and also I would like to introduce Malika Ewande, our assistant creative director, and I, the artistic director of Promostyl. So today we will talk to you about engaged fashion ethics, issues and challenges. We will discuss the evolution of fashion, the commitment of consumers, the committed and sustainable fashion, and the principal axes and actors of this fashion. So, the notion of commitment has long been associated with the environment. Produce less and better, recycled, repaired, upcycled, etc., etc. But today, this commitment takes a new turn that goes beyond beyond the simple framework of ecology, but we are now integrating social and inclusive values. This is a very important thing. This change has become more pronounced thanks to the influence of the social media, but also by the millennials and the Gen Z. Here is, I think this is not a good slide. Here is an example of the famous Barbie doll brands. And you can see here that a lot of colors, skin colors, and things are represented.
Right, so hello. Very excited to be here to talk with you about ethical fashion today. So as Sebastien has previously mentioned, ethical fashion is mainly born from Gen Z, especially the notion of ethical fashion and what it is. So before we dive into ethical fashion, I want to take a moment to talk about the Gen Z and who they are, what they represent. So Gen Z, when we talk about Gen Z, we talk about the people born from 1997 and onwards, who now represent 32% of worldwide population. So we're kind of taking over. Very slowly, but we are. So why the demographic is quite easily established, it's more their consuming habits and the thing that they're interested in and the thing that interests them that tends to kind of, wiggle the brain, because it's very, very, very layered. Gen Z is extremely layered, and it's also very difficult to grasp. So let's try and understand it a bit better. So when we talk about Gen Z, we tend to hear the very cliché terms of social network obsessed, very superficial, but much like the generations before them, we can't reduce them to just a few assumptions. Gen Z is an extremely broad spectrum. You go from system critiquing vegans to pro-capitalist NFT enthusiasts. So it's a very, very large and very, very various generation. And they're submitted to the same influences and they fight the same fights, just not the same way, basically. Okay, so let's dive into the real characteristics of Gen Z. First and foremost, Gen Z is connected. They spend most of their time in social media. They use social media to their advantage. They have the digital world basically has no secrets for them. They're also activists, so they do have causes that they fight for very fiercely. They're extremely outgoing. Gen Z is definitely the generation that shares their lives and their opinions on social media the most, for better or worse. They are very receptive. When it comes to communication with them, they will be very receptive to online publications and all that stuff. They're also very focused, very committed. If a Gen Z consumer is into your products or what you have to sell, what you have to say, they will be very, very much into it. One of the biggest, probably important characteristic, they are peer-oriented. Gen Z works on influence of each other and on other people, influencers, celebrities, political people. They will not make decisions or take a stand without the opinion of others. That is very important for later. I try to keep that in mind. And finally, Gen Z is extremely singular. They love to feel unique. They love to feel distinct from the rest of the world. Moreover, Gen Z is a quite misunderstood and kind of broken generation in the sense that they were born in times of uncertainty. Being part of Gen Z is being part of a generation that constantly lives with ecological and climatic anxieties. And in that sense, social media has become their weapon of choice. You have examples on the screen with the IG crying filter that was created specifically to denounce the unlawfully enslavement and imprisonment of the Uyghur people in China. It has become one of the greatest tools on Instagram to address the cause, other than the articles and several reports that you've probably have been reading on the social medias. And other examples is more with brands who are using their platforms to promote messages of change. So for instance, you have Maison Cléo right here that has their t-shirt that says no change, no future. So as I said, Gen Z is peer-oriented, so they talk among themselves, but they also have kind of ambassadors in forms of influencers. Here we have two examples of two French influencers. So the first one is Lena Situation. You might know her. She's quite famous. She's been working with Dior, with several organizations. And you also have Noelita. So why do influencers work so well with Gen Z is because they're the same age. They have the same interests, and more importantly, they are very open, very honest. They put everything out there, and that speaks to the generation. Because Gen Z is a generation that is very much about authenticity and honesty. So influencers are the perfect choice to be ambassadors of that specific generation. So yeah, here you have slide a bit more in depth of Noelita and why she's so interesting. We see her partnership with Nina Ricci, talk about her books, Harmony as well, that she's released. So those are success stories that inspire Gen Z because it shows them that there are people who care about what they care about and that they can just follow in their footsteps if they want to. So another extremely useful tool that could be used in the future with Gen Z is the Metaverse, because the Metaverse is kind of a mirror to Gen Z in a way. You know, Gen Z is very self-centered, it's very possession-seeking, but it's also people-centered, because we really want, when you're part of Gen Z, you really want a true representation of an inclusive planet, a true version of the planet and the diversity that comes with it. And the Metaverse, beyond the transactional aspect with the NFTs and everything, it is a true revolution in terms of identity because it's more accessible, it's more ethical, it's diverse. And as perfectly summed up by the co-director of the VR company Sandbox, he says that when you're born, you don't choose who you are. But in the Metaverse, in the virtual world, you can start from scratch. So this is the Metaverse is going to be an amazing tool of of speech for Gen Z in the future.
So, as Malaika said, in this world of new appearances, the metaverse allows unlimited creativity, and this is the opportunity to show very precisely the need for inclusiveness among customers. The big beauty groups are taking up this challenge, like L'Oreal, which are already filed 17 virtual trademark patents. Or Clinique from Estée Lauder Group launches its Metaverse-like US platform, and Web123 Sun, after two-third very utilitarian version of the web, a third version is just been released. Focuses more on the development than on primary need, and that's very good news. At the bottom here, the brand of Pharrell Williams here, Human Race, and Moti. Gen Z is a generation mainly consuming from the second hand and the resale in lines, whether it is in thrift shops, vintage stores, online sale sites from individual to individual like Vinted, or even the brand themselves. A couple of numbers now. 41% of consumers say when they shop for apparel, second-hand is the first place they look. 62% of millennials and Gen Z say they look for an item second-hand before purchasing it new. 46% of millennials and Gen Z consider the resale value of an apparel item before purchasing. So, resale of second-hand clothes is a business model for brands to consider now, in the years to come. This trend corresponds for the millennials and the Gen Z to the need to adopt a sustainable fashion. So for several years, Generation Z have been denounced brands who do not aim to improve their impact in terms of sustainable development. Young adults aged 16 to 29 are looking for alternative solutions, increasingly adopt more conscious and sustainable purchasing practices. They take advantage of online information to understand how their purchases can affect the world around them. This leads to the emergence of alternative fashion businesses such as the reselling, vintage trends, and second-hand stores. So the second-hand industry is growing thanks to digital, much more accessible than thrift stores, but also it presents an offer of products constantly available for purchase. Platforms continue to grow up as Depop in North America or Vinted in Europe. And so brands must react to being a vector of their own second-hand market, or to create collections that are more sustainable. Like here, Bottega Veneta have created a second-hand sales section on their e-shop. The subjects of influencers now, so media and social networks strongly influence the purchasing habits of the Generation Z. Thanks to influencers promoting new products, you know this, sponsored contents, highlighting rapidly changing trends. However, there is a rise in the presence of influencers concerned by the ecological and societal causes. They remind us that the fashion industry adds to the planet's carbon footprints. And also, since the scandal of the revelation of the treatment of the Uyghur people, a large majority of them, of the influencer, denounce the purchase of fast fashion and boycott some brands. Another example, the Maison Cléo, the French brand here, just there on the left, denounce another brand, Shine, which steals other brands' creation on a daily basis.
Right, so this is not cooperating. But so, as we've said, influencers are the peers of Gen Z. They are their main ambassadors, their main example. And when it comes to entering ethical fashion and secondhand that Sebastien was talking about, the case is no different. We have Lena Situation, who I told you about earlier, who has promoted restlessly working with the Vinted platform, who I probably think you should be familiar with. It's European, so it ships in Europe. And then you also have Le Bon Coin, with whom she's been partnering, which is a French website with the exact same principle, basically. It's all secondhand. So, now that you know Gen Z and how they work, how exactly can you seduce them? How do you get them to buy your products? First things first, you need to be able to use social media, and you have to be able to use the exact right platform. Like I said, Gen Z is a spectrum, so part of Gen Z is not going to be interested in Instagram. They're going to be more on Twitter, or they're going to be more on TikTok. So you have to find the exact platform that works for the Gen Z that you're targeting, if that makes sense. Second, you have to focus on authenticity, transparency, and spontaneity. Those are the characteristics that we've talked about earlier when it comes to Gen Z, so it only makes sense that you have to do the same with your product. Third, use the influencers as ambassadors. Put them in your ads, put them on your social media, make them do capsule collections with you, whatever you can. Because the Generation Z will be listening to them, obviously. And examples of that, you have J'aime tout chez toi, who are two French influencers, they're a couple, who have several contracts with several brands, and they just post a picture of the brand that they're wearing to their millions of followers, and people just find interest like that. Another way to appeal to Gen Z is to have a real customer experience. Give them something that is very unique to you. For instance, we all know Balenciaga, I assume. They give you this QR code, and when you scan it, you basically enter a virtual world of Balenciaga. So you're just walking around in town, and it's like a Balenciaga world. This is an extremely unique experience. It's basically the creator telling you, I've got my own world, but you can enter it too. Another item, so you have to send regular customized messages to your customer. You have to answer their questions about your product. You have to communicate with them as much as possible, offer them specific challenges on TikTok, so stuff like that. Give them, like I said, unique experience. And last but not least, promotional codes, because Gen Z loves savings. We all do, but Gen Z just loves dressing for cheap. We just love it. It's easier for us. So, yes, in conclusion about the Gen Z, it's young, it innovates, it creates, it it's looking for ways to make the world a better place on every aspect possible, and more specifically, to preserve and be aware that we have to do something about the ecological situation we're in, and they do so through recovering, transforming garments. We have 3 examples here of very, very Gen Z brands that do so. So the first one, you have Eleanor Rose Stories, that basically recollects jumpers, like used jumpers, and makes new ones from them. Then we have Torbings, and I'm very sorry if I mispronounced, who create designs from used jeans and bandanas that they salvage from pretty much everywhere. And finally, you have Miss Mojo, again, sorry if I botched that, who is, so it's a unisex brand that takes inspiration from the digital and recover from ancillary role, from industries, from brands, from fashion houses, from literally everywhere. They find as much fabric as they can and they reuse it to make their product. Okay. So we've talked to you about the generation that is most into ethical fashion. So now let's talk about the actual subject, ethical fashion. So ethical fashion, when you hear the word ethical, you have to bear in mind that it's not like in the traditional sense. It's more of an umbrella term that we use because ethical fashion can be a reference to sustainable fashion, environmentally friendly fashion, slow fashion, conscious fashion, healthy fashion, etc. For example, here you have Maison Cléo and their campaign. This is an example of healthy fashion. It's healthy fashion because it's environmentally friendly and also because it promotes body positivity. That's ethical fashion. Ethical fashion, one of the first characteristics, is inclusivity. And in terms of inclusivity, we have the skin color, we have the gender, but one specific term that has been popping up quite a lot these days is the plus size side of things. How do we dress people from size 42? How do we dress them in a manner that is flattering and not just a shapeless bag with just a few scraps of fabrics? This is definitely a huge issue at the moment, and we have one of my absolute faves, Lizzo, who's a perfect example of that with a brand. She's managed to create garments that are actually flattering for plus-size women everywhere. So the shift to inclusive fashion, it's becoming more and more popular in fast fashion as well. You know, the question of equality, when we talk about equality and inclusive fashion, it's not just having a curvy section in your store, it's actually eliminating completely the idea of a curvy section. It would be having that size, 54 with the size 34 on the same rack. We would completely forget about the idea that, okay, this is a specific area for curvy women or curvy men or curvy whatever. So, to be truly inclusive, other than the size, is also to maybe try and scrap the idea of gender for good. Rather than shopping by gender category, we would just buy by clothing category, basically. Because some men want to buy dresses, but they have to go to a women's store or a women's section. Some women want to dress baggier or wear a suit, but they have to go to the men's section. The idea would be to completely scrap that. And to, for instance, other than having the male-female kids section, you would have the wide leg trousers section. You had the slim trousers section. So rather than focusing on your gender, you would be focusing on your morphology, on your body, and on the use of the garment, basically. And finally, there's also this idea of above the gender, giving some kind of power back to the consumer, because many consumers don't have the same idea of what is sexy, of what is colorful, or what is trendy, what works, what doesn't. We want to try and kind of step out of normalized aspects of things, just give the consumer full power to do anything and to tell any story they want. with the garment. So that would be ethical fashion as well. So like I said, it's a super broad spectrum. It goes beyond just focusing on ecology. You focus on the ecology, you focus on the human, and you focus on absolutely everything that goes with making fashion more positive, basically.
As you perfectly know now, in terms of ecological responsibility, the textile is the second most polluting industry in the world. But social responsibility is also an issue to be improved now. Fortunately, fashion and designers are now committed to eco-responsibility at all levels. Sustainable manufacturing, eco-friendly initiatives, and eco-responsible labels. Today, the consumers demands ethical fashions. As a report, for example, the online list, which states that the consumer's needs for clothing in organic cotton or vegan leather have increased by 47% in 2018. Strong signals are to be noted, such as an increasing number of sustainable hashtag posts in Instagram. For example, the amount of the hashtag sustainable fashion posts.
Lost your mic. Yeah, just a sec.
Sorry.
Yeah, juste tu le rattaches. C'est bon? Non.
It can oh, wait.
So sorry, technical issue. All good, okay.
Okay, sorry for that. So, the message is clear. The consumer is now want, and the future of fashion will be ethical or not. The fast fashion brands are pointed out for their not very green-friendly business model. I think you know that. Even if they try to redeem their conscience, capsule collections made from organic materials, collections of used clothes in boutiques, research and development of innovative materials, their initiatives are more or less convincing. We can see on that slide some example here. This H&M dress made only from plastic bottles recovered from the oceans. Shoes made of Pinatex in fake vegan leather, made from pineapple bark at Nike. Or a wool patchwork collection of recycled jeans at Monkey, the brand Monkey. So some example of engaged brands. Well, so the success in terms of ethics comes mainly from globally independent brands and not about big groups or fast fashion, as I told you, but for independent brands. With an accessible mid-range positioning, an attractive aesthetics. For example, here you have the French brand Veja, which make stickers in recycled polyester with white rubber for soles, according to fair trade principle. And also, all these brands make any advertising because advertising is also polluting for the environment. Another example, Amélie Pichard is in France an offbeat and committed designer, known for its collection of vegan bags and shoes in collaboration with Pamela Anderson. In the United States, the brand Reformation offers women's wardrobes 100% eco-responsible, made in Los Angeles, so manufacturers with a local manufacturing. Screen. About the greenwashing, beware of greenwashing. The term greenwashing refers to the use of arguments claiming good ecological practices, non-real or minimal, in marketing or communication operations. So, these are unethical communication practices with no real guarantees that aim to enhance the image of a product, a brand, by making it more ecological in order to create support among consumers. Fast fashion regularly use that practice. So now, what are the key points of a responsible brands? This is what we will see in the following slides. First, the transparency. An eco-responsible brand has to communicate in a transparent way because the consumer is looking for information before consuming an ethical product. A brand that works in full transparency informs its consumer via social networks, their websites, or in the garment itself. Thanks some tools like movies or photos showing the whole production process, the place, who manufactures, in which conditions the employees work, the material used, and the traceability. Here is an example from the brand Cleo, just here, who gives a receipt to the purchase of one of its products, detailing all the costs of a garment.
Right, so transparency. It also applies to your production. Your customers will be very happy to buy your products, and it's going to bring them a lot of joy. It would definitely bring them a lot more joy if they knew that the people who made the garments had the right working conditions. So we're talking about making sure that there's no child labor involved, no enslavement involved, that there was a contract, that basically every basic human rights has been respected. And this is, I mean, all of the characteristics are important, but this is definitely something that the ethical fashion consumer is going to be looking at. To support your brand, they have to make sure that you treat the people who do your project right. Third, we get into fabrics. Sebastien has mentioned earlier the impact that we all know the fashion industry has on the environment. And fabrics and the manufacturing, their production, it has cost a lot on the planet, as we use a lot of chemicals and toxic products for the planet and for our bodies. There's also the water consumption that has become insanely bad, and we're about to lose water basically on the planet, which is insane. And so, in order to make ethical fashion work, you have new fabrics that have seen the light of day. So you have Lyocell and Model. This is the first one up there. That is made from wood and guarantee sustainable production. You then have flax, which is another solution because it requires 5 times less fertilizer and pesticides than cotton. You have hemp, that is quite trendy at the moment. I think we might have seen like several articles talking about the use of hemp. The only problem is that it's a very strong material, so it's very, very, very hard to work with. We're still trying to figure out how to work with it, but it is an option. It's not impossible. And finally, vegetable leather. So when we talk about vegetable leather and vegetal leather, we talk about leather that is sourced from cork, from vine, from pineapple, basically any earth project that you can find. So this is a way that you can go on about to get into ethical fashion in terms of production. You also have to be able to have the right information, and for that you have several trustworthy labels that you can look at on the clothes that will let you know that you're actually using an ethical product. So the first one is GOTS, or Global Organic Textile Standard. So it certifies that between 70 and 95% of the product is from a production chain that is environmentally and humanly friendly. So again, we go back to the characteristics that I mentioned earlier. You have Oecotex that guarantees the textile is without toxic products for the environment or for your body. You have Biore that guarantees an organic production of raw materials. And finally, we have the PETA-approved origin. So this one guarantees that there's an absence of any animal products or that there was any animal testing involved. So you have ways to know when you're doing ethical or not. Literally on your labels, on your clothes, you just have to look for them.
So today's practice of upcycling became one of the strong trends of the circular economy. I think you know that. Its goal is to give a new life to used products so that unused products gain value instead of losing value. Very simple. Very easy, sorry. Here's some example of looks created by three creators concerning by the upcycling. Children of the Discordance, there on your, I don't know, on your left.
Yes.
Maison Cléo and Studio Glaze. So upcycling is attractive because it brings life to a new manufacturing system and a new hope for humanity. The environment is protected because original materials are used, not thrown away, and therefore no longer draw on the Earth's resources, and energy is saved. For example, here, the designer Marine Serre, the French designer, unveiled on social networks the making of its latest collection from old kitchen towels. All upcycled clothes are very often unique and produced in small quantities or even just one copy because every waste is different and therefore provide a unique raw material, turning this garment into works of art. This is like it's become a kind of art. We are in a new area. What can be upcycled? So, you are probably familiar with this coffee table assembled from old wooden pallets, or the pretty bottle transformed into a trendy vase. We see that everything is upcyclable. Thank you. And especially by anyone. As a result, upcycling is also appealing to brands for decoration and design. Concern about adhering to this brand concerned about adhering to a responsible approach. So, for example, this is not on the slide here. The luxury brand Hermès designed some goodies from unused leather. This is the first brands who do this kind of manufacturing from many years before the trends of upcycling. Some private individuals are also very concerned by the upcycling approach. Associations are born with the aim of organizing collecting programs to give objects a second life. For example, the startup Give offers a service of donation of objects between individuals to fight against waste and overconsumption. On the right, the Air Foundation exhibited artists who create silhouettes from waste. Oh, this is another slide, I think.
Sorry.
Après. This one.
Apologies. Is this one?
It is celle-là.
Is the one over there. Sorry.
This is this.
Okay. We are being cut short.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Il faut
So,
qu'on
to
finisse.
conclude, second-hand is going to be your most attractive mean of consumption now, as part of ethical fashion. We're being cut short, unfortunately, but this is London. There is second-hand absolutely everywhere. So now that you have all the information, I invite you to go out, buy ethical, be as ethical as you can. If you have any question, please do not hesitate to come ask us. We can talk about this further. And thank you so much for your attention today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.